Louisiana State University in Shreveport, Palisade, Professor Dr. Jeff Sadow. Hey, Dr. Jeff, how are you this morning?
Good, thanks. How about yourself?
So you've had a day and a half to break down the demographics, to take a close-up look at a lot of people. Well, let's start with that. The shocking Donald Trump upset. Was Dr. Jeff Sadow as shocked as was all of the mainstream media?
I wasn't entirely surprised. I figured she was a narrow favorite going into the election. Of course, that's in popular vote. The contest obviously is done through the Electoral College, where key states have to be won, and well, that's exactly what happened. Trump got voters out where he needed to, and Clinton didn't.
Why were the polls so incredibly wrong?
Well, one reason I just basically said was they tend to measure a national popular vote, but that's not how things are decided. If we remove, Clinton's going to be probably going to have a lead in the popular vote when it's all over, but if you remove New York and California, she's down millions, for example, because she won by such big margins there. That's one reason, and the other is that most polls tended to use kind of like pollsters are like generals. They always fight the last war. They used a turnout model that was really more appropriate to 2012 than 2016. A couple of polls that did not do that use a bit different balancing of demographic groups, they actually were not too far off from the actual election results.
A lot of the experts are saying that a lot of Democrats just stayed home, that those polls may have lulled them into thinking, I don't have to go vote. You agree?
No, because when you look at, it's certainly true that Clinton is going to have about 3 or 4 million fewer voters than Obama did in 2012. But if you look where the contests were competitive, so maybe a dozen or so what we would call swing states, she actually polled even with Obama in most of them. And in fact, in Florida, she outdid him. But the fact of the matter is, Trump obviously beat her in Florida, and he would have beaten Obama with Obama's totals in 2012. And then the three most crucial states, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin, that's where Trump really pulled ahead compared to Clinton. She had massive drop-offs in those three states compared to Obama in 2012. And in fact, Trump's totals would have beaten Obama from 4 years ago.
So, Dr. Jeff, in the end, what it really comes down to, and in my mind, the turning point, the key to the election was those traditional, let's call them the Rust Belt states going east to west, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. It was basically the old, for lack of a better term, Reagan Democrat coalition that cost her the election, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. The reason why we see these massive shifts away or much lower vote totals for Clinton 2016 compared to Obama in 2012 is precisely because there was this movement away from Democrats in those states and into the Republican column.
I'm seeing a figure, too, that says, and we're talking to Jeff Sadow, LSUS Political Science professor, that young adults preferred Clinton over Trump by 55 to 37% margin. But in the Obama election, he got 60% of the young adults. We're talking folks 18 to 29. Did her message just not resonate with them?
Or did they just not show up where their numbers low?
No, what's kind of a common complaint, I guess, coming from Democrat elites right after the election was that somehow this election had to do with some, unity of whites that went out and overwhelmingly voted for Trump. That's not true. Turns out Trump only did 1% better relatively than Romney did in 2012. Really, where it happened was he did 7 to 10% better among blacks, Hispanics, and Asians. So he dipped into and took away from Democrats that part of their coalition, which he had said he was going to do all along, and he delivered. And kind of the same thing with along age lines. He basically hardly did any worse among younger individuals. and their turnout wasn't that appreciably lower. It's just that he did better, and in fact, he did worse among older Americans. But he did, in terms of age, he did better in the middle.
Donald Trump, he did markedly better, the numbers I saw, in some minority groups, specifically Asians and Hispanics, yes?
Yep, that's correct. All this talk about how Hispanics would be alienated by some of Trump's more colorful remarks about Mexico and Mexicans and all that didn't pan out. Again, Clinton did considerably better with those minority groups than did Trump, but the fact is he did better than Romney. He ate into the coalition, and that's really what won the election, at least in some states.
And evangelicals, the conservative Christians that had sort of abandoned Romney 4 years ago, they came back in droves for Trump, right?
Well, it's not so much that they abandoned Romney. He did marginally better among evangelicals, but again, the expectations of many were that because of his some of the choices he made in the past and some of in his lifestyle and some of the statements that he's made, that he would turn off those voters. But they seem to respond to really more the threat that a Clinton presidency would bring greater social changes, and particularly nominations to the Supreme Court that could trigger those. And so maybe it's a defensive mechanism. They turned out as faithfully for Trump, and more so than even Romney.